Hey, hey, hey. Good evening. Good evening. It's Joshua Townsend. I'm here to talk with you again about the creative process. The creative process for anyone involved in acting or writing or producing or directing, anyone in the entertainment industry, involved in creating storytelling, story sharing, story creation, stories. And tonight we're going to talk about something that a lot of people don't talk about, but it's really important if you're creating content, if you're creating a project that you want to be relevant for the long road, for the long game, for to be around for a long time. And so what that is about is dropping out of the idea of writing for popular psychology. So if I'm writing to or writing from the perspective of that which is popular or pop or current psychology that is specific to that era, that time frame, I'm going to time date stamp my material unbeknownst to me, so that the relevance of that, because it's going to be so time date stamped, it's going to be so specific to a certain time zone, unless that's what you want to create. But if you're interested in creating something that has legs, as they say, something that goes beyond time and space, you don't want to get caught up in that trap. And it is a trap, in my opinion, to some degree. So let's look at real life examples. So back in the 50s, 60s, there was a team called Doris Day and Rock Hudson, and they did several films together, and it had a very specific stamp. It was very Americana, but it had no depth of reality, and it pretty much just projected the image of that which was popular, of that kind of psychology of the day, and that's what it was. And I read recently that Doris Day, was like the number one box office star in the early 60s, and Rock Hudson was the sexiest man alive, and super popular. And then you can read about what happened to them later, but that's another story. What I'm talking about today is the psychology of writing towards the psychology that paralleled the popular reality. Now, at the same time, in that same time zone, one of the feature films that was released in the early 60s was a film called Dr. Strangelove, which some people would say, arguably, is a classic, and it goes beyond time and space, and it speaks to the very core of humanity. And that's what we want to do, or that's what I'm interested in doing, and perhaps you are as well, which is creating material that has legs, that stands up over time, that's part of a larger legacy, that still resonates, whether you see it the day it was premiered, or if you see it 20, 30 years later. And we tend to think of those films as classic, but they don't have to be necessarily classic. They just need to be, they still need to hold up, they still need to have relevance. And it really tracks back to this thing of writing for the popular current psychology model. And yes, there's a relevance, I suppose, of like documenting that kind of reality at that time. But then you're just documenting that reality at that time. You're not going for the larger scope. So that's what I wanted to share about that. Then, so the work I do has two-prong approach, if you will. One is, working on the technical side, which is working on, or techniques, working on the project. And the other side is working on the self, working on the individual, working on, from the creative, artistic perspective. Because the work I do is only limited by my ability to perceive, or my own limitation. So the more I can break my own limitations, the wider my perspective can be, the more width and breadth my work can have. And so for that, I constantly want to keep opening up, improving, challenging myself. So yesterday, I challenged myself in the sense of I went, I want to break. I want to break a physical pattern, pattern behavior. See, physical patterns, in my opinion, are easier to break because they're on the external world. So if I want to break a thought pattern, that's more challenging because it has to do with catching a thought or catching something that's very fleeting. It's non-physical. But changing a behavior or changing a behavioral pattern is more I want to say it's more doable, but it's easier to recognize. So yesterday, I was taking a shower, and I have a pattern, habitual pattern, where I dry one leg in the tub. I have a tub shower, so I dry one leg standing, both feet in the tub, and I dry that leg off. And then as soon as I'm done, then I take the dry leg and I put it on the outside of the tub, and then I put the other foot on top of the tub, top of the tub, and I dry the second leg off. So I always do first one leg, then the other. So yesterday I said to myself, I want to break this pattern. I want to do the opposite. And so this evening, I was taking my shower, and I got to the point where I was about to dry off, and I went to do my usual side first, and I went, So I remembered, so I broke the pattern, right? Or at least I had the opportunity to break the pattern. And then I actually did it. I actually dried off my other leg first, stepped outside of the tub, then turned around and dried the other leg off. And it was so weird. It was just strange. And it was such a wonderful reminder for A, becoming more aware, but B, if I ever want to have the sensation as if for the first time, or if I ever want to go into a thing of like not knowing what to do in an area that I know what to do, or if I want to have that feeling of innocence or more aliveness, I can do that. I can a small thing by drawing off one leg first, then the other, can create that kind of like openness and vulnerability and like, what am I doing? And sort of like exploring it fresh. It was insane. The experience was like maybe no more than 2 minutes. But even when I shifted my weight to the other side and got out of the tub, with the other foot first and then pivoted, I had to like think for a minute. I became more conscious. I became more aware of what I was doing. So I highly recommend that as a tool or a technique for any creative to break outside the pattern behavior, the norm, that which is expected, the routine, because we're not like, there's people out there that pride themselves in never having to, that they actually look forward to creating more pattern behavior because they're like, well, if I have pattern behavior, then I can think about my problems and I won't be caught up in the main mundane thing of driving the same way every day to work. And I'm not saying there's not value in that either. There is, but it's a different kind of value. And for artists, I'm going to advocate that we constantly want to be breaking our own habituated patterns so that we can be more present, more alive in the moment, even if it is a mundane task, because our characters will be doing that. So that's my advocation. I can't thank you enough for stopping by. It's a pure delight sharing with you. And I hope you're enjoying all the other videos. And I'll be doing more of these lives. If you find these inspiring, please send me a note. And if you send me a note and you ask me a question, I'd be happy to make a video about it. And I'll let you know it's up when that happens. And subscribe and come back more often because I'm doing a lot of these. Thanks for popping by. More fun to come.